Assalamualaikum. Before we begin our presentation, we would like to introduce ourselves. My name is Ali Auza binti Muhammad Karazmi.
My name is Nur Inshira Ilyani binti Azizan.
My name is Sabrina binti Muhammad Rizwan.
My name is Umar Khattab Abdul Rahman.
Okay, so today our group will be presented about inflation and the impact of rising fuel prices in Malaysia based on the article provided. Inflation refers to the continuous increase in the prices of goods and services over time. In March 2026, Malaysia inflation rate increased mainly due to rising fuel prices and higher global oil prices. This caused transportation and businesses operating costs to become higher, which also affect the price of goods and services. Besides that, the government introduced subsidy program to help reduce the burden on consumer and businesses. These subsidies play an important role in controlling the impact of rising fuel prices, especially for low-income households. In this presentation, we'll be discussing about inflation subsidy, supply chain effects, purchasing power, and the consumer price index or CPI. We will also explain how rising fuel prices affect businesses, consumer, and the Malaysia economy.
Okay, first I will explain about the meaning of inflation. Inflation refers to a continuous increase in the general price level of goods and services over a period of time. When inflation happens, the purchasing power of money will be decreased. This means that consumers need to spend more money to buy the same goods and services that previously cost less. In other words, the value of money become lower because each unit of currency can purchase fewer items than before. There are two main types of inflation. The first one is the demand pull inflation. This inflation happens when the demand for goods and services in the economic become greater than the available in the supply. In simple terms, too many people are trying to buy products while there are not enough goods and services to satisfy everyone's needs. As a result, our business will increase the price because consumers are still willing and able to spend more money. Demand pull inflation usually happens when the economy is growing rapidly and consumers have higher disposable income. The second one is cost push inflation. This inflation happens when the cost of production increases, causing that businesses to raise the price of goods and services to maintain their profits. Production costs may rise because of higher fuel prices, increased wages, expensive raw materials, or disruption in the supply chain. When businesses spend more money on transportation, electricity, labor, or manufacturing materials, they will often transfer these additional costs to consumers through higher selling prices. For example, an increase in global oil prices can raise transportation and delivery costs, which will make the price of food, clothing, and other daily necessity increase. Next, I will explain about how rising fuel price contributed to the increase in Malaysia's inflation rate in March 2026. According to the article, Malaysia's headline inflation increased from 1.4% in February to 1.7% in March 2026. The main reason was higher retail fuel prices caused by elevated global oil prices. This situation is an example of cost push inflation. When fuel price rises, transportation and production costs also increase. Businesses such as factories, retail, and logistic companies need to spend more money on fuel to transport goods and operate machinery. Because of this higher operating costs, businesses will increase the price of product and service to maintain their own profits. For example, the article mentioned that higher fuel costs will affect wholesaler and retail activities. Although the wholesaler and retail trade index expanded by 4.4% in February, the growth slowed down due to weaker vehicle sales and higher operating costs. The government also introduced targeted subsidies to reduce the impact of rising fuel prices. Under the Budi 95 program, RON 95 petrol remained at RM 1.99 per litre, while subsidy the sale price in Sabah and Sarawak stayed at RM 2.50 per litre. These subsidies help to reduce the burden on consumers and businesses. In addition, lower prices for fresh food items such as seafood and milk help partially offset the increase in fuel prices. However, fuel prices still remain the main factor contributing to the rise in inflation during March 2026.
Okay, so the second one is subsidies. So what is subsidies? Subsidy is a financial assistance provided by the government to reduce the price of goods and services. The purpose of subsidies is to make important items more affordable for consumer and business. In Malaysia, fuel subsidies are very important because fuel is used for daily transportation, business operation and production activities. So now I will explain about the role of government subsidy, especially the Budi 95 program. Government subsidies play an important role in reducing the cost of living. When fuel prices increase, transportation and production costs also increase. As a result, businesses may increase the price of goods and services. This situation can lead to inflation. Through the Budi 95 program, the government helped to control the inflation by maintaining lower fuel prices. Subsidies help reduce transportation costs, delivery charge, and production expenses. This allowed businesses to maintain more stable product prices and reduce the burden on consumer. Besides that, subsidy also protect low-income households, especially the B40 group. Low-income families are more affected by the rising prices because they spend a large part of their income on important goods such as food, transportation, and daily importance. Therefore, fuel subsidies help them to manage their living expenses more effectively. Based on the article, Malaysia inflation rate increased to 1.7% in March 2026 due to rising fuel prices. However, the government maintained the RON 95 petrol price at RM1.99 per litre under the Budi 95 program. This helped reduce the impact of rising global oil prices on Malaysia. For example, when fuel prices are controlled, businesses such as logistic, food delivery and transportation company can continue operating at lower cost. This prevents businesses from increasing price too much and help control inflation in the country. However, without subsidy, food prices will increase sharply. Transportation costs will become more higher and businesses will increase product prices and consumer will face a higher cost of living. Inflation will also become worse and affect the economy negatively. To conclude that, government subsidies such as Business 95 program are very important because they help to control the inflation, reduce business costs and protect consumers from rising living expenses despite increasing global fuel prices.
So for the supply chain is a network of activities, people, organization, and resources involved in producing and delivering goods or service from supplier to customer. It includes sourcing raw materials, manufacturing, transportation, storage, and distribution. Next, I will explain the effect of rising fuel prices without subsidies on supply chain and business costs in Malaysia. So first is higher transportation costs. Delivery and logistic costs increase when fuel prices rise. Business need to spend more money to transport goods from one place to another place. For example, courier companies like Poslaju or JNT need to pay more for fuel when delivering parcels across Malaysia. Second is increase in production costs. Manufacturing and operational costs become higher because factory and machine also use fuel and energy. As a result, business may increase product prices. For example, food factories such as Nestle may increase the price of product because production and transportation costs become more expensive. Number three, lower consumer spending. Inflation reduces consumer purchasing power, so people will buy fewer non-essential goods and services. For example, consumers may reduce spending on branded clothes, gadget or entertainment because daily expenses become higher. Number four is supply chain disruption. Rising food prices may cause delays in delivery and shortage of foods. Imported products also become more expensive. For example, imported fruits from other countries may arrive later and cost more due to expensive shipping charges. Number five is difficulties for infant or new business. New business usually have a limited capital, so higher operating costs make it harder for them to survive and compete in the market. For example, a small online business selling homemade cookies may struggle because delivery and ingredient costs increase. Lastly, the current economic issue. So Malaysia inflation has increased because of rising food prices. Without subsidies, both business and consumer would face even higher costs. For example, the price of food and daily necessities in supermarkets may continue to rise. In short, rising food prices without subsidy can negatively affect supply chains, business and consumer in Malaysia. Therefore, fuel subsidies are important to help control control costs and maintain economic stability.
Okay, for this slide, I will explain definition of purchasing power and consumer price index or CPI. First, purchasing power means the ability of consumer to buy goods and service using their income. So basically, it shows how much we can afford with the money we have. When price increase, purchasing power will decrease because the same salary cannot buy many items before. For example, if last time 50 ringgit can buy a lot of grocery, but now 50 ringgit can only buy a few items, that means purchasing power is getting weaker. Next, Consumer Price Index or CPI is an index that measures the average change in price of a basket of food and service items. This bucket includes important daily needs such as transportation, housing, healthcare, and other basic items. CPI is important because it's used to measure inflation. So when CPI is increased, it shows that inflation is increasing and the cost of living become higher, and shortly, CPI help illustrate price change while purchasing power show how much we can actually buy with our income. Next. Effect on low-income household poverty. Low-income household poverty are the most affected because they spend large portion of their income of basic necessity, especially food and transportation. When fresh food price remain high, poverty family must allocate more money for grocery, causing their monthly budget to become tight. As a result, their purchasing power decreases and they may struggle to afford important expenses such as rent, utility, school needs, and healthcare. Poverty household may reduce spending on nutrition food and shift to cheaper processed food, which can negatively affect health in the long run. They may also reduce consumption of protein source like chicken, fish, and focus only on the cheaper carbohydrates such as rice and instant noodle. Higher food price increase the risk of financial stress because B40 households usually have limited saving and emergency fund. Overall, high food price will increase the cost of living and worsen the financial burden for B40 household. Okay.
So in conclusion, rising food prices can increase inflation and raise the cost of goods and services. Government subsidies help reduce the burden on consumer by keeping essential prices more stable. Inflation also affects supply chain, business, and purchasing power, especially for low-income households and new business. Therefore, proper economic policies and cost control measures are important to maintain price stability and support economic growth. That's all from me.